Okay, good morning, everybody. Again, we're doing it through the Zoom, but maybe no, it's a nice way to do it. But hopefully, in the short future, we can do it as we used to do it. Our part is be'alotcha, when you light the candles, which is very interesting because we don't. It's not written when we light the candles, but when we lift them up. Be'alotcha et hanerot, when you take them up, which is a very strange verse to describe lighting the candles. So first of all, understand why is the Torah using this phrase be'alotcha. So one of the important things to understand when we talk about be'alotcha is when the fire goes up. But the point is, sometimes when we try to light a candle and we leave it quickly and the fire didn't get in, it turns off. So here, the Torah is telling to Aaron HaKohen, you have to light the candle, make sure that it lights by itself. And that's a lesson for everybody, especially in education, because one of the symbols of the menorah is the Torah, is the light of the Torah, but it's also the light of education to give the others the message of the Torah. How do we pass it? How do we give it? We have to give the tools. Now, sometimes there's a very interesting phrase that says that somebody who learns the Torah from one rabbi is not going to see a blessing out of it. On the other side, we are being told that you have to make a rabbi to yourself one. So how does it, it's a contradiction. From one side, they're telling us you need one rabbi. From the other side, the Gemara is telling us you need a lot of rabbis. What's going on here? What's the reason? And the interesting thing is, if we think about it, in the Tehillim is written, "V'haya ke'etz shatul al palgei ma'im, asher piryo yiten beito va'aleu lo yibul." That the tzaddik is going to be like a tree that is planted on a lot of rivers. And it's impossible, because you have one river, you cannot have a lot of rivers for one tree. What is the idea? The idea behind is very interesting, because Torah, God doesn't want us to be a copy of somebody else. Now we have to make the definition between what is the difference between having one rabbi and having a lot of rabbis. The idea is very simple. When I need the law to observe the Torah, I have to listen to one rabbi. I cannot choose a rabbi which I want, because this is funny. It's like, I always tell this story. I was invited to a wedding, and normally a wedding is a meaty meal. And that's what I thought is going to be at that wedding. So I had something meaty before I went to the wedding. And when I go to the wedding, I realized that they're having a dairy milk, milky. And they had things there, wow, unbelievable. The cakes and blinches and pizzas and spaghetti, all the good things that you can have on dairy. Now I had a problem. So I'm talking with a friend on the table, says, I just had 40 minutes ago, I had a steak. Now I cannot eat milky. So the guy told me, what's the problem? There is a new app. And in this app, you ask the question and you also tell the answer you want to get. And the app finds you the rabbi that it's going to give you the right answer. So I tried it and it got out an answer, no problem. In Holland, they wait for 1 hour. And if you are not from a Dutch guy, so you should look at the table if there is a Dutch guy. And if not, look in the hall. And if not, phone somebody. And then you connect to him and you don't have to wait more than an hour and you can eat. Does it sound reasonable? Definitely. Definitely. It's a joke. In other words, you cannot choose a rabbi that is going to rule according to you. That suits you. So this rabbi is strict on this, so I'm not going to ask him about this, but this rabbi is strict on this. So I choose the rabbi according to what I want to do. No, that's one side of the picture. Ruling according to the Torah is one rabbi. But to learn the Torah and get the right tools to build yourself, you cannot have it from one rabbi, because what's going to happen? You are going to be a copy of this rabbi, and that's not the idea. The idea is to use our own potential. We are talking about it so much lately. As we now a few days ago received the Torah, and we said, we're asking God, "V'ten chelkeinu b'toratecha," give us our part in the Torah. Now, in order to get this, you have to build your own way to find yourself in the Torah. Of course, everything has to come from a pure source. And to make things a little clearer, a few years ago, quite a few years, my son went to a yeshiva up north, and this was a very interesting yeshiva. I was phoning my son 11 o'clock in the morning. "Hi, how are you?" And I listened to him. I said, "Yeah, I understand that you just woke up." I said, "Okay, can help." Well, 11 o'clock sometime, maybe he was tired. He learned the whole night. 2 days later, I'm phoning again. Same time. And 2 times I did it, and I realized that my son was waking up very late in the morning, let's say almost at noon. And I thought, what kind of yeshiva is this? What, they sleep, eat, and drink? What's going on? So we had a meeting for the parents, and we're talking about yeshiva and then we had a private meeting with the Rav. And I asked him, I'm calling my son, and in the middle of the day, he is only getting up of the bed. What's this? Is this an education institute, or this is a kaitana? This is a holiday place. It's a hotel? What's going on here? What, everybody's doing what he wants? Then explain to me. You see, we want our students to do things that come from their own free will. We don't force them to do anything. We want them to do things from their own free will. Now, when we look at it in this way, it sounds very nice. I said, okay, you know what, I go with you. But I want to ask you something. If you have a kid that every day does the same, is not coming to the lessons, is only sleeping and eating, maybe doesn't even come to daven by himself in the room, if he davens at all. This is the way, says, no, you have to understand. There is a limit to everything. We give them the hand. We give them the tools. Now, if they use the tools right, we are going with them. But if there is a kid that thinks that he comes here to sleep and eat, we're calling for a lesson, we're calling for a meeting, and we tell him, dear student, if you came here to learn, it's okay. If you think that you came here to sleep and eat, find yourself another place. This is not the place for you. And I must say, one of the interesting things in this yeshiva was that they had all kinds of teachers and rabbis. They had a rabbi who was learning deeply into the matter of what they was learning. There was somebody who was going on looking at the whole picture. There was a more spiritual, like Kabbalah, talking about Hasidic things. And in the beginning, you think, well, what's going on here? But I must say, my son, because of this yeshiva, is what he is today. Because he got tools from all kinds of rabbis, and each one of them with his own way of thinking and learning, and he was getting the free way to choose and to do things from his own will. Yes, that work for everybody, I must say. Not for everybody. But when it works, it's the best way. The best way to give the tools to the student that he is going to do things by himself. That is Ba'alotcha Tanerot. That's what the Torah is telling us. You don't just light the candles. You give the tools so the candle is going to lit up and stay up when you live in it. What is the chokhmah? You have somebody or is a copy of you. And in the minute he's got a new question, he wouldn't know what to do with it because he never learned it. So in other words, he knows only what he knows from his rabbi. That's no good because he needs a tool to use his own brain, to get his own abilities, to build himself according to the law. And I think this is one of the biggest lessons in our path. When we talk about the nerot, when we talk about ba'alotcha et nerot, you also have to understand that it's not an easy thing. And that's what written in our parsha. You have to find the rabbis that are going, that really the Torah comes from a pure source. Not the same, but from the same source. In our parsha, we have an interesting thing. Al pi Hashem yisau bnei Yisrael, al pi Hashem yachanu. It's written a few times, and the Torah is describing us what it was happening in the desert, like they were parking, staying in a place, and then going according to the Kodesh Baruch Hu. And the sign was when the cloud left, and they had the trumpets, and then the cloud moved, and they moved with him. Now, the Torah is describing us a very interesting episode. Sometimes they had to stay in a place for 2 days, sometimes for a week, sometimes for a year, sometimes even more. Sometimes they only got to the place and then they had to move again. And what did Am Yisrael do? Whatever God told them to do. When they had to move, they moved. When they had to stop, they stopped. Now you can imagine to yourself. For example, after unpacking all the stuff you've got on the donkeys and whatever you have, and building the tent, and suddenly, wow, you have to go. You would get very aggravated. Am Yisrael, no, they realized God wants us to go, we go. Now, sometimes they stay in a place for many, many years. And you know, it was boring already. And the kids were looking for new things to do. But Am Yisrael didn't care. As long as God wants them to stay there, they stay there. God wants them to live there, they live there. Unbelievable. This is the greatness of Am Yisrael. But there is another interesting theory. When we say Al Pi Hashem, Yisau Al Pi Hashem, in life, you have to understand and realize that everything is Al Pi Hashem. When you learn, as we said, for the Torah, you have to do it Al Pi Hashem. Don't choose a rabbi that playing around. That's not the idea. You have to choose a rabbi that is Al Pi Hashem and only Al Pi Hashem. That's one point. The other point is you have to realize that everything in life is Al Pi Hashem. You know, a few years ago, my son was celebrating, I think, his birthday or his wife's or whatever it was, and they went up north, I think, to Caesarea, to the sea. She's sitting on the beach, enjoying the sun getting down. Anyway, they getting up. It's starting to be cold, chilly, and they're not dressed properly for the night. So they go back to the car, to the restaurant where they invited the place for dinner. Suddenly, my son realized that he had a hole in his pocket, and the car keys fell down in the sand. Now, did he try to find something in the sand on the beach? Not easy. It's really complicated. And you know, people saw him looking at the sand. What are you looking for? So he told them. And everybody was looking, but nobody found it. So we are on our ways to the other side of the country to a wedding. And suddenly we get a call. Netaneli, oh, I lost my keys on the beach. We had spare keys in our house. The problem is that we were far away. So I went to our house, took the keys, and saved my son in where he was. The point is, we have a plan. And you think those plans are going to work. Rabot machshavot belevish v'atzat Hashem. You have a lot of thoughts, you have a lot of plans, but God is the one who decides. And this is why we have to say always, Be'ezrat Hashem. Everything is according to God. When you wake up in the morning, it's Al Pi Hashem. When you walk up to the grocery, it's Al Pi Hashem. When you go for whatever you do, God is there. And this is something that we have to put in ourselves. Now, I want to talk about another interesting point in our parsha. That is also, people think that human beings, if somebody is, can maybe you, if you can mute your the voice, or stop the voice, or we won't hear any noises. Okay. Sometimes we see people that are very, very, how do you say, cruel. And we see, look at this guy, how cruel he is. And there is a general knowledge that people are, from nature, are cruel because they don't care about nobody, they care only about themselves, and sometimes they can be very cruel. And I must say, I saw an interesting article about it. And the real truth is that Rav Adam Sinai says that we have two me. We have the fake me and we have the real me. Now, what is the real me? The real Okay. The real me is the neshama, and the fake me is my ego. The other ones, that my desires, what I want for myself. The problem of a lot of people is, of everybody, that we see the world in our own eyes. The way it suits us, the way we are going to benefit out of it. And sometimes we don't realize that what we do affects others. And that's the reason that sometimes we see people doing very bad things to others. So normally we think that, you know, this guy is cruel. But the problem is, you have two ways to think about it. One way is really cruel. The other way, he didn't realize that this guy is a problem. It's like somebody comes to you in asking you something, but you see yourself, you don't see his problem. So you act, no, I'm not going to help you. You've got everything. What do you need help for? And there is a big difference between thinking a guy is cruel, than thinking the guy doesn't realize the other side's problem. And this is the fake ego and the real ego. The real ego is the neshama. The neshama should see what's happening to the others. The fake ego, the fake me, he sees only himself. So he looks at the world with his own eyes. Now, to understand this, I must tell you an interesting story. I think I told it to you. A few years ago, we've been in China, in Shanghai, for an exhibition. On Friday, we went to a market, and it was noon, a few hours before Shabbos. We took a taxi to go back to the hotel. It wasn't easy to take a taxi, and Baruch Hashem, eventually we got a taxi. On the way to the hotel, he did an accident, a light accident. So he was getting out of the car, and the other driver was shouting at each other, and then he told us, go away, pay me my money and go. Like with signs, didn't know English. So now we are in a strange country. We didn't know what to do. We paid him the money and got out. Now we find ourselves in the middle of nowhere, a few hours before Shabbos, and we don't know what to do. We're trying to stop another taxi, but all the taxis go. Either they've got somebody in, because the system in there is that you phone a taxi. On the middle of the way, people are normally, people are normally phoning and ordering a taxi. So most of the taxis that were going there were with people in it. And if they were not, they were on the way to somebody. Anyway, nobody stops for us. Eventually, somebody stops, didn't help, didn't want to listen to us, and he went back. Then somebody else stops. And my son comes to him, and he tells him, you know, I'm going to give you double the money, 4 times the money, 5 times the money, whatever you want. Just take us to the hotel. With sign languages, with overlays, showed him money. Eventually, this guy agreed to take us. We get to the hotel, and I must tell you something unbelievable. My son wants to pay him what he promised him. He gives him the money back and takes only the normal fee. A tzaddik. And then I realized what's going on here. You know, we have a very bad opinion on those Chinese taxi drivers. They are terrible. They use us. When we get out of the exhibition, it's the rush hour, and we want to go back to the hotel. You want to take a taxi? They take 3 times the money they have to take. So our opinion on the taxi driver in China is very bad. And now, suddenly we find out the taxi driver, which is a tzaddik. How can it be? And then I realized, the taxi driver in China look at the tourists, especially those who go out of the exhibition, as business people, rich people. They have a lot of money. For them to pay the fee of the money, which is, by the way, it's very cheap. For them, it's nothing. So they think that they are right to do what they do. Says, this guy is a rich guy. I'm a poor guy. I work the whole day in my taxi. I've hardly bring parnasa home. And this guy's got so much money getting out of his ears, of his nose. So he should pay me. This taxi driver that took us to the hotel on Friday, he realized that the one in problem is us. We are the poor people, and he is the rich guy. So suddenly, when he realized that we have a real problem, his mercy, he had a pity on us, and he felt what we are feeling. So from his good heart, he took us to the hotel, and he would not take more than the normal fee. In other words, if we feel the others, if we understand the others, we won't be cruel. The cruelness comes from us being concentrated in ourselves. So if you see somebody that you see, he reacts like, wow, unbelievable tzaddik, and suddenly you see him acting cruel to somebody, think this way. He doesn't realize what he's doing because he's concentrated in himself. And believe me, if we think about it, in life, it happens a lot. A lot of times we find ourselves doing things because it's good for us and not realizing that we are affecting somebody because we look at things from our own point of view. And one of the big lessons when we educate the next generation, and also for us, we have to understand and realize that it's not me, it's everybody together. That's the idea. That's why we received the Torah a few days ago. Our share, our part in the Torah, in order to take it to others, our own part. As we say, we have to develop our part. We have to learn from a few rabbis, from a few systems in order to build ourselves, to be the vessel, to have the tools, and give those tools to others. And this is, by the way, a very interesting point. People don't realize it. When you want to teach somebody, you have to learn first by yourself. You cannot teach somebody if you didn't learn. And sometimes, I remember a few years ago, we had a secretary phone service that they used to help in customer service. Didn't work. We gave them like a paper with all the problems and answers. Didn't work. Why? Because they didn't realize what they're doing. They didn't know anything about it, just read it from the paper. So now we use it in a different way. They get the call because we cannot get all the calls. So they get the call and then transfer it to us. And when our professional guys got the time to answer, he answers them in a professional way and things are much better than from then. In other words, when we want to teach the next generation, when we want to teach others, first of all, we have to know. We have to learn. Lilmod ulelamed, to learn and then teach others. I want to end this lesson in also another interesting point. This point is, in our parsha, there are a lot of interesting things. There is a episode that Am Yisrael are asking for meat, and they're getting punished for it. Very severe. Like they eat and eat and eat, and it gets out of their nose, and they die. Why? They only ask for meat. In the past, they also asked for meat, And God, they were not right of asking because they had to have the trust in God and a belief in God that is going to provide. But when they go to the desert, there was nothing to eat, they complained. So God gave them. But what happened now? Why now God is not giving it in a good way? Why are they getting punished in such severe way? Because the idea here was very simple. The Torah tells us there are safsuf asher b'rikbo, that's the Erev Rav. It's not Am Yisrael, it says those who come with Am Yisrael. It'avut ahava. They had a lust, a desire. Vayashuvu vayifku gam bnei Yisrael vayomru mi yachilun basar. And then they're asking for meat. But the point is, they didn't want meat. They want the physical world. They had too much spirit in them. In other words, they were eating manna from heaven, heavenly food. You think they didn't eat meat? So when we look in Parashat Aman, when they got into the desert, it's written very clearly that at night they got meat and in the morning manna. So they had meat. So now we understand, this is not asking for eating meat. This is something else. This is, the Erev Rav had enough of all this special food that was a spiritual food. It was going into the body and no junk. Didn't need to go to toilet, nothing. Because it was a pure food. They had enough. They wanted a steak, a normal steak, a physical thing. That's what they wanted. In other words, they are complaining not about eating, but about desire. They wanted to go into that. That's why they complain all the time. They want to go back to Egypt. What does it mean, Egypt? Egypt means going back to the lust, to running after the joys of this world, not being so spiritual. We also, each one of us, wants good life, wants good food, wants nice clothes, wants a nice car, wants a nice house. No problem. As long as you know what is the important part and what is the less important part. What is important and what is not important. And also to understand and realize that all the good physical life is not the mission. It's not the task. It's not where we're going to. It's a tool to get to the right way, to our destination. This is not what we want. We want Olam Haba. But in order to get Olam Haba, we need good tools. So it's okay to have nice life, to have good clothes, to have good food, as long as you know that you're using them for what? For Avodat Hashem. That's why you want, and nothing wrong. A few years ago, I've been in a wedding of a friend of mine, and he's a very rich guy. And now this wedding was over the top. Really, this was unbelievable, over the top. The food, they had a before buffet and after party what they had. And singers that were there and the band, unbelievable. The money that was spilled there was like, okay, it's a wedding, why not? I tell you why not. In the middle of it, I was thinking to myself, 1 minute, I want to understand, what am I doing here? Why did I come here? You know, why did I come to the wedding? For the wedding. To see a young couple getting married and building a holy home, a Jewish home in Eretz Israel, in Am Israel. But instead, you lost it because you were thinking, I came here to eat, to listen to music, to have a nice function, nice stuff. Is this really what we're doing it for? We are missing the point. And this is in life all the time happening. Instead of concentrating on the important thing in life, we concentrate on the rubbish. It'avut ahava. All the show and all the clothes and the meat and this wedding was unbelievable. But is this really what we should do? I'm not saying. The point is that sometimes you do so much around it that you miss the point. And this is exactly what's happening here. The lesson for us is, yes, there is the thing that we have to put money into the mitzvahs. You have to have a nice etrog, you have to have a nice menorah, you have to have a nice mezuzah. Yes, but those are only tools. You show God how you appreciate the mitzvahs, but not more. The important thing is not the house of the mezuzah. The important thing is the mezuzah inside. Even a car, a nice car. The important thing is not the car, is what you do with the car. Where do you go? How many mitzvahs can you make with it? And this all starts from educating, that our light will go up, not down. Be'alotcha goes up. When does it go up? When we get the right tool. When we look at the menorah and we understand el mul pnei menorah, the menorah is facing God. The menorah is our symbol that the light of the Torah will light the whole world. And we should understand this and realize that it all comes when we learn the Torah ourselves from a pure source. You can have a few sources, but they all have to be pure. To build yourself in order to be a part of Am Yisrael. And to take the part that we got in Matan Torah a few days ago and take it and use it for the benefit of everybody. No, I'm not by myself. I have to look at everybody. And if I realize how my friend feels, I will be much more loving and understanding that the problem is that sometimes we look at life from our own point of view, and that's it. From a fake ego, from our fake me, and that's wrong. We should look at the world as a part in this beautiful thing which is called Am Yisrael. And when we do this, and we realize what is the important thing in life, and what is not, putting things in the right proportion, and understanding that this world, we are here to build tools and to use tools in order to build ourselves. So our flame will go up to heaven. Be'ezrat Hashem, I hope that each one of us will build it in the right way, and we'll also pass the messages to others. But before we pass it to others, we have to learn it by ourselves. To do the right thing in the eyes of God. Al pi Hashem. When God tells us what to do, we do it. And we understand that everything comes from love. And when you look at the world with loving eyes, with understanding the other side, the whole world looks different. Thank you.